16, and a close friend of Dan Dorfman, all here ready to go. Hi, Marco. How are you, buddy?
I am well. Yes, I have the ring to prove it. It's in the locked room with the security guard right now, and the Dorf is watching.
Oh, thank God that we got Dan in here. And George Ofman, the man who was working at WSCR when I started out as a radio intern, now the host of Tell Me a Story I Don't Know. If you're not watching, listening, getting into George's podcast, you're not living your life the right way. 47 years in the sports media business, WSCR, WBBM, WGN, NPR. George, you've been everywhere and back.
I have, and the funny thing is, 47 years in the business, I'm only 46.
George, you look good. You look ready to go here. For our first-time viewers, let me just tell you how Sport and Order goes. We've got 7 questions. You get 30 seconds to answer each question. We alternate who goes first, and yes, I'm the judge. I'm the jury who decides who gets the point in that question. It's the first to 4 to take home the trophy today. We will have a winner, either George and or Marco. Marco, we're going to start with you today, and we've got a variety of topics. We are starting with the NFL, which, of course, you both know, but maybe you've been delving into your NFL draft, seeing where the Bears are going to pick at number 20. But we're talking quarterbacks right now, and, of course, the Bears need one. We'll get to that in a second, too. But I'm looking at Mac Jones, who's been hot and moving up the board, and maybe going to San Francisco. I'm also looking at Justin Fields, Kyle Shanahan flying all around the country trying to figure out who to draft at number 3. The 49ers moving up to get there. You would think they knew what they wanted to do, but maybe they're just debating still. Who is the best fit for San Francisco? Marco.
Well, I mean, the first thing, Carmo, you got to look at is Kyle Shanahan seems to be able to thrive in any circumstance. Like, he got to a Super Bowl by running the football with guys that we can't even name at this point. So it feels like he'd be able to work with either. However, the guy that I would take out of those two, Mac Jones and Justin Fields, is Justin Fields for one reason, and that is the athleticism and what I'll call elite mobility. That comes in really handy in this version of the National Football League. It's almost a requirement, a prerequisite, and I think he has that. Mac Jones, I'm a little bit worried about the one-year wonder factor of that. We all saw that in Chicago with a guy who started at North Carolina for 1 year in Mitchell Trubisky, and look how that went. I mean, I like both quarterbacks, but I got to go Justin Fields, Carmo. Love the bell.
We got the 30 seconds on the clock, and I was letting you go as long as you wanted until you brought up Mitchell Trubisky, and then I had to bring out the bell. George,
I was going to bring him up too.
I'll go sit in the corner. Bye.
George, new school, old school. Which way we going here, Jones or Fields?
First of all, does it really matter? We know who the first 2 quarterbacks are going to be. I think Kyle Shanahan's doing the right thing. He's trying to measure which quarterback's going to be best. And remember, he's got one that's sitting there right now. Jimmy Garoppolo, who might be the best of the 3 if he can stay in one piece, and that's the big problem. Between the 2 of them, I like the arm. I like Mac Jones. I think he's the better of the 2, but I'm not sure if it doesn't matter either way, as long as he doesn't take Mitch Trubisky.
George, I like it. You're underlining the Garoppolo factor. I somehow think that San Francisco is going to make a trade here. But I think I'm leaning. I think I'm going Grote at the start here. Going for the dual threat, new wave, Justin Fields. Let's go for the higher upside. See what he can do. So on a very close call at the start here, Mark will take the 1-0 lead. Let's keep it with quarterbacks, and let's bring it to Chicago, which of course you guys are incredibly familiar with. And you remember Super Bowl 20 and a quarterback by the name of Jim McMahon, the punky QB, in the news for calling the Green Bay Packers the best organization that he ever played for, and that, quote, Chicago is where quarterbacks go to die, which is an aggressive but mostly, I would say, true statement. So why has it been so rough for quarterbacks in Chicago that still, to this day, most people would say that the best quarterback that's ever played here was Sid Luckman, who played in the 40s, George? Why is it so tough for quarterbacks in Chicago?
Well, first and foremost, this is coming from Jim McMahon, who really was nothing more than an average quarterback who just happened to be the quarterback of the Bears during the Super Bowl when he only threw, 15 touchdown passes for the year. That said, it's an organization that historically has been about running and defense. And that's a problem because we have so many regimes that have gone past that. I give Jerry Angelo credit. He did go out and try to get a franchise quarterback. Jay Cutler would have been better had he not had 7 offensive coordinators, decent offensive line, and some people to throw to. Eric Kramer was pretty good too, and then he broke his neck. What's happened? It's just misguided every single, not year, decade.
That's true. We can count him by decades. So not enough help around him is at least one of the factors that George has underlined. Mark, where are you at?
Well, the Bears have taken some big swings and have failed at them. And I think a lot of them were supported, such as Rick Meyer. Now, that was a risk, but yet a big swing. But a lot of people liked his pedigree and where he was drafted and the Notre Dame fact. Cordell Stewart, another guy who was another big swing. They sucked. I get it. But these were big swings taken by the Bears. Jay Cutler was a huge swing. So was Mitchell Trubisky. And none of them have worked. So it's not like they haven't gone for it with quarterbacks. I think there has been some bad luck, but mostly just bad. I would disagree a little bit with Georgie. I think Jim McMahon, when healthy, was above average as a quarterback. I don't think he was great, but I would say I would put the word good behind Jim McMahon. But the one thing I would say about McMahon is he is such a whiner since he retired. I don't disagree that Green Bay is a terrific organization and that, quarterbacks go to die in Chicago, but that guy hasn't had said a nice thing since he retired about the Bears or anything for that matter. He's a big bore.
Yeah, so it could be a little bit bitter with Jim, although I think the Green Bay thing is accurate. And this is a tough one, but I do think that George has underlined something here, that the actual support, like Cutler, he would have been better. You could have supported him better and not put him through 17,000 offensive coordinators and get some more talent around him. I do think it is fair. And by the way, Jim McMahon would have had a better career if perhaps he was slightly protected better, although not completely the offensive line's fault when Charles Martin dumps him on his shoulder. And George, I did not like that you downgraded McMahon, but I'm still giving you the point for just pointing out that, look, you guys did not put enough help around the quarterback. So we're tied up at 1 as we move to baseball. Mark, you're up first here. So we're looking at the whole league here, 2 weeks in, just underlining some things here. The Boston Red Sox, they lost their first 3. They've won 9 in a row. San Francisco, the Giants are off to a surprising 8-4 start. The Royals, granted, they're kind of bunched up there in that AL Central, but Kansas City is in first place. We've seen 2 no-hitters. A lot of stuff has happened. So give me your biggest surprise so far of this young baseball season that could be built to last. Mark.
Well, since I'm based in Chicago, I'm probably a little bit biased in what I see, but I would definitely go with Carlos Rodon, who just threw the no-hitter. He did it legitimately with real stuff. There wasn't smoke and mirrors. I mean, this guy was hitting 98 on the clock. And for people who don't know, it's just such a great comeback story. I mean, I'm saying this as a person who was mad that the White Sox brought him back. I thought it was a waste of time just because this guy gets injured every single time. And when available, even in last year's Game 3 against the Oakland A's, he was bad. I was like, it was time to move on from Carlos Rodon. And then he throws the no-hitter, squeaking in as the 5th starter for the Sox, did what he did. I think that is, to me, the biggest story to start this 2021 baseball season.
So perhaps a comeback of the year candidate, having a big year. George, which way you going?
Well, if you're talking about surprise teams in Major League Baseball this year, let's not go past the Detroit Tigers, who are a 500 team, who also have a very good farm system. Got a lot of good young pitchers. Matter of fact, I think they have the 2nd best farm system in Major League Baseball right now. So you do have surprises. I mean, the Red Sox lose their first 3 games at home to the Orioles, win 9 in a row, as you said. The Royals are built, I think, to be a better team in the future. But I actually like what the Detroit Tigers are doing. And don't be surprised. They may win as many as 80 games this year. Then look out for them in the future. They could make the American League Central a very good division.
George giving some love to the Detroit Tigers out of nowhere. Marco betting on Carlos Rodon to stay healthy. I feel like he threw way too many pitches and emptied the tank last night. George, it's very big of you for going Detroit, so I'm going to give it to you to have Ofman take a lead here. 2-1 for the Detroit Tigers, off to a solid start and going to be in the mix. A lot of people perhaps are sleeping on Detroit. I like it, George. Let's keep it with Chicago and those White Sox and that Carlos Rodon story that you're talking about, Mark. He was non-tendered by the Sox after the very, very rough 2020. He had a 2017. He had shoulder surgery. 2019, he had Tommy John surgery. And then, of course, last night, he threw the second no-hitter of the year, his second ever complete game. The other one, by the way, he lost in a 2-1. He only threw 8 innings. So this was an incredible story last night, but there's been a lot of great baseball stories. So who can rival Rodon in a fall down, get back up, have success story that we loved so much? George.
Well, if you're talking about historically, I like to think it's somebody right here, and that is Ryne Sandberg. Think about this for a moment. Back in 1993, when Sandberg was starting to slide, then comes 94, and he retires 57 games in the season. He retired because an issue with his wife. He missed the entire 1995 season, and at age 36 came back and he had 25 homers and drove in 92 runs. I said, there's no way this guy's ever going to be anything close to what he was. And he was. It was a spectacular season for him. He retired after that. So when I think of somebody falling down, his situation was very, very unique. He came back. He had a hell of a year.
I do remember, and there was some awkward trades around that time with the Cubs having to get rid of some players. Mark Grote, what do you got for a fall down comebacker?
Well, I hope I didn't misunderstand this question. Is this have to be baseball, strictly baseball? Or
not necessarily.
Okay, because I got 4 names here. I want to go through. And Tiger Woods coming back to win the Masters in 2019. Never thought that we would see that again. Alex Smith of Washington last year. They almost had to amputate his leg. He played quarterback. Peyton Manning. Remember, he missed all of 2011 because he had the spinal fusion and the neck surgery. And then the Colts dumped him because, they had the number 1 pick in the draft and Luck was available. So he goes to Denver and wins the damn Super Bowl. And then lastly, and I think this should get me the point, I really do, Sean Livingston. Former Peoria high school guy who I covered. Then he suffered that gruesome knee injury, missed a year and a half, and then came back. So that's what I went with. I hope I didn't overdo it, but I'm sucking up for the point here.
You didn't, and I'm looking at my question, who can rival Rodon in a fall down? That I did not specify sports, so I actually really like that you went off the board here, and you named some beautiful names, and I think that everybody who's watching right now is like nodding along, like those are all great.
Yep.
Mark Grote, this was excellent. You have tied it up here 2 apiece, and I love just thinking about those stories.
I'll even give you the point on that one.
Thanks, Georgie.
That was big time. All right, let's go. We got 3 to go here, tied up at 2. It's a best of 3. We're going to the NBA for the next 2. So close game last night. Brooklyn head coach Steve Nash decides to sit Kyrie Irving down against the 76ers. The bench comes back from a 22-point deficit to 5. Nash leaves Kyrie on the bench, prioritizing long-term health over winning. Kevin Durant, James Harden, Blake Griffin did not play as well, neither did LaMarcus Aldridge, who just retired. But here's the question. Is Nash wrong to not worry about where the Nets finish in the standings? Marco.
I think it's pretty excruciating when you get that close in an individual game, but this is the way the NBA is right now, and the better and elite teams have had success with this formula of letting guys sit down, letting guys rest. And I know as a rule, LeBron James does not allow for it, incidentally. So, and I think this is one of those times, too, where the coach, Steve Nash, he knows his personnel. KYP, as one Stacey King would say. He know your personnel. He knows these guys. He knows what they need and what they don't need in an individual game. And it is now more than ever, it is so much about what happens in the playoffs as opposed to having a good regular season, because none of that means a damn thing.
Sixers are talking about wanting that 1 seed here, though. George, where are you at on this? Is Steve Nash right?
No, he's not right, and neither is Pops for what he was doing. It's awful. He created a monster for the NBA, and I hate it. First of all, players are there to play the game, not to sit and wait for the NBA playoffs. Granted, there are no fans. When there are fans there, how do you think they feel if the big stars aren't playing because they're being given a rest so they can wait for the playoffs? And the games are on television. If you're watching the game and you can't see your favorite player play because he's being rested for the playoffs, it's awful. I hate it. He's wrong, and so's everybody else for resting these players.
George going triple down to attacking the whole league. Neither of you guys mentioned, but I think it's interesting. Like, look, if you're in the 2-3, you're going to have to play Milwaukee, so you're going to have a very tough Eastern Conference semis, and then you're going to have to play whoever the 1 seed is. So there's that part. But George, I'm with you, man. Y'all are killing the league. Let's get out there and play. And I get the rest in the long term, but you're thinking about the fan. This is FanSided. That's a beautiful thing, George. My heart is full right now. So 3-2, Ofman taking the lead. He needs one more. Can he get it in the final 2? Here we go. So the Lakers and Celtics are playing tonight, and I'm thinking of the 80s, and I'm thinking of Bird, and thinking of Magic, and I'm thinking of KG, and I'm thinking about Kobe. It's a phenomenal, iconic NBA rivalry. But there's a lot of players missing tonight, so it's not that exciting. But give me your all-time favorite NBA rivalry, Lakers, Celtics, or you can go elsewhere. George, you're up.
Well, for me, I have to say it's the Bulls and the Knicks, because in the 90s, boy, were they hated each other. But the problem was the Knicks, even though they had a really good team, couldn't beat the Bulls. They had Patrick Ewing. They had a very annoying coach who happens to be a very good analyst these days. They had a guard the Bulls fans just simply hated. And every time those two teams played, it's New York and Chicago. They were 1-2 as far as population in the country went. It was great theater, but the Knicks just couldn't beat the Bulls. But every game seemed like there was going to be a brawl. So to me, that was a spectacular rivalry at the right time for the NBA.
Bulls and Knicks, if you go to Madison Square Garden, you will see a mural for the dunk with John Starks in game 2. And when I was there, I was looking around Knicks fans. Y'all know you lost this series, right? Mark, which way you going?
John Starks incidentally became a Chicago Bull for a minute.
That's true.
That's right.
About that. Yeah, that did happen. I love Bulls Knicks, but I got to go Bulls Pistons because that was a fight. Literally, just about every time those two teams hooked up in a meaningful game, you had Bill Laimbeer or Rick Mahorn, Isaiah Thomas laying dirty blows, Dennis Rodman, even John Sally, who became a Bull, along with Buddha, James Edwards. But I got to say, man, those Detroit teams did something to the Bulls that no other team did. Well, I guess the Knicks tried to do it too, and that was to try to literally beat up the Bulls because that was the only chance that they had against a eventually more talented roster. But just seeing the fights and that sluggish style of play, I got to go Bulls and Pistons.
It still lives to this day. If you watch The Last Dance and Isaiah Thomas after The Last Dance being very annoyed with one Michael Jeffrey Jordan. And these two obviously speak incredibly near and dear to me, but I do have to go to the Bulls and Detroit as we're going to go to Game 7 here because I've never left a NBA arena with more hate in my heart for an NBA basketball
right?
team. It was so much fun and so absolutely painful at times, but and so many years too. 4-1, 4-2, 4-3, and the Bulls finally getting over the hump, and it lives to this day. I don't think those if Michael and Bill or Scotty, those guys would not say hello to each other now. That hatred is real. All right, let's go to Game 7.
Oh, wait, did I get the point?
You did. We're tied up
okay.
at 3, Mark.
Sorry.
Game 7, it's all on the line, and it's one of the greatest days of the sporting year, certainly one of the best days of the baseball year. Jackie Robinson Day, everybody wearing 42 across baseball, and we all love Jackie and miss Jackie, and it's we want to honor him right here. So give me your best suggestion on how baseball can further honor Jackie, the man who was allowed, I think that's a key part, to break baseball's color barrier moving forward here. Mark, you're up.
Yeah, I think, first of all, what they do having everybody wear the number 42 is excellent. I think that is a great way to honor him and what he represented. I think that there should be more in terms of the pregame, in terms of some sort of live ceremony. I also think that continued education during the broadcast about what he meant, and then more on all the black players who didn't make it, who are not in the record books and could have been, should have been and have been kind of left out of this formula in terms of what they could have been in Major League Baseball. There's a whole section of players that will never be accounted for in terms of Major League Baseball. And I think that baseball needs to do better at recognizing them on Jackie Robinson Day.
A lot of education on the field during the broadcast. I like it, Mark. George, what do you have?
Well, Jackie Robinson obviously represents something very special in baseball. And right now, baseball has had an issue, and that is that it has a dwindling African-American participation in the sport, not only on the major league level, but in young people are not playing the game as much. So what I would think is that perhaps maybe each city that has a baseball franchise, whether it's a minor league or major league team, has a baseball park named after Jackie Robinson. And that way you might be able to draw more African Americans to start playing the game again. It's a wonderful game. Baseball is a fabulous game that we all grew up watching. And like I say, there are fewer African Americans playing now than ever before. Maybe that's one way to motivate them, is to have a Jackie Robinson ballpark or a field in each one of the cities that has a major league franchise and one that has a minor league franchise.
So this is a tough answer. And participation in the sport and realizing that baseball is fun. We had a phenomenal story in Chicago with Jackie Robinson West, and that going to the Little League World Series, which was just incredibly exciting and uplifting, all of it. I'm going to have a hard time determining a winner on both this. Mark wants more education in the broadcast. George wants to get more people playing. At the end of the day, I'm better at playing than learning. So I'm going to lean towards George's desire to get more people on the show, which would be good for the sport without a doubt. And by the way, it's something that baseball needs to be aggressive on. You hear that from a lot of players. So George,
we're both winners on this one.
Yes. Well, there's no losers ever on Sport and Order, even though somebody does walk home with the title. Mark, you got to hang. Your head has to be held high here walking off. There's no right.
Hey man, I have no problem losing to a legend, and I could use that word. This isn't like Little League participate. I lost, and that's okay. But I lost to George Ofman. If this been somebody else that was like on my level, then forget it. Then I would have been mad.
Does this mean we have to go out with Dan Dorfman?
Hey.
I think we should. I think we should I want to go to George Ofman's house and eat chicken legs.
George, congratulations. Any final thoughts as we say goodbye?
Yes. The Cubs need to start hitting.
I was not allowed to throw a Cubs question on there today because they're just so abysmal that nobody wants to even hear that word.
No.
At this point, it's a little rough. Hey, everybody, George, thank you so much. Mark, thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate it. You guys are awesome. Thank you to everybody who helped out today. And most importantly, thank you to you for watching Sport and Order today. We're back with you Monday, 5 Eastern, 4 Central. Have a great afternoon.